Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the JTM Community Podcast, where we are building a community that you can bank on. I'm your host, Jason Melvin. If you are watching this, you already know who our guest is. If you are just listening, you will find out in just a moment. Of course, if you want to touch base with me for advancement advising, you can do so at j-tm.community. If you're looking for the podcast specific stuff, you got a /podcast at the end of that. Of course, join our social medias for instant updates, engagements, easy voting, videos for human connection, inspiration, motivation. There are some humorous ones. There are some emotional ones. So all the things that are good for the heart and soul. If you're looking for additional resources, you can also find that at the website. There's a community partner area that has resources both local to the Mount Pleasant, Michigan area and national resources. So give that a view if you are in the need for any of that. Without further ado, today's guest is none other than the frequent flyer to the podcast, wonderful host, wonderful friend, some would argue wonderful teacher, Will Squires. Thanks again, bud, for joining us. So for the viewers, listeners, it is going to appear as a standalone episode. However, this has been a double header for.
It has been. Yeah, we just got done doing one a little bit ago, but it was a fun one.
Episode we had just finished. So
yeah,
which was super fun.
So I had to change up a little bit back here. I had to put one more book up. So I should have changed my shirt too, but really throw people off.
So today's episode is the topic that folks had voted for and sent in some info, and that is our biggest fears. So this is a little bit different. It is topical, but not necessarily our views. This one's a little bit more on our experiences.
Yeah.
And you were kind enough in the poll that went live that you actually shared your kind of biggest fear right now. So for those who may not have seen it, what is that fear for you, Will?
Well, I just want to start off by saying, like, I think that's one of the reasons that I love doing stuff with you on this so much is because just based on doing all this stuff with you and all the stuff that you put up on your Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and everything that you've got, it's made me more comfortable with sharing a lot of like who I am. So I felt more comfortable like actually sharing my fear and putting it out there and like saying, hey, this is something that I fear. Let's see how people feel about it. But my biggest fear is just the fear of dying or the fear of losing somebody that you love to death. A lot of people ask me why I go to funerals, and I'm like one of the only people that doesn't really show a lot of emotion. And it's because I was told when I was very young that it's okay to cry. Just do it when you're, especially if you're like the man of the house, the one that's supposed to be the strong one, the one that's supposed to be the leader. Just do it when you find some time by yourself.
That crying is like a solo experience, or like you do it in solitude.
Yeah, you do it in solitude. It's not that it's a sign of weakness. It's just that it's a sign. You do it when nobody else is like, or very few people are around. Like, I will cry in front of my wife if there's something really tough going on, or it will be just me being able to reflect on my own thoughts and stuff like that. So it's just the fear of personally dying because I don't feel ready for it yet, and losing those and like that I've spent a whole lot of time or respect or things like that. So that's one of my biggest fears.
I think that's probably, I would think that is probably the most common fear that people have.
Other than public speaking.
than public speaking. I don't enjoy public speaking, but I don't fear it. I also don't fear death, though, or the loss of a loved one. Has never been a thing that I've had. It's similar to you, and not that I was ever taught this, and actually Jordan Peterson has put it pretty well when I was watching a clip or a podcast. I can't remember where it came from for him. I encourage anyone to check out Jordan Peterson. Do so with an open mind. Amazing intellect, inspiration, candid, very objective, very research experience oriented. So again, go and do it with an open mind, because some of it's hard to swallow. But he had specifically made a reference to death, and he was talking with I believe an audience member, a gentleman, I think, and they were kind of discussing that aspect, and he said, essentially, to strive to be the person that can maintain stability and support your family. Be the person that in a crisis you can manage it. So the death of a family member, that in the world is falling apart, if everyone falls apart, right? It's just the hurt, it's just the pain. The things that need to happen can't happen, right? But be the man, be the woman who can keep your composure to handle the crisis. And he was not saying that you don't get to hurt, that you don't get to cry, that you don't this, right? It is to have the strength and the resiliency, right, to maintain that, but also to engage in your family, your friends, and support, to allow those things out when the crisis is done, right?
And that's me. Like, I still fear it. I still fear my own death, because I have so many different things that I can talk about to that, but I just don't. I've been around death so much. Like, there's been a lot of it in, like, I literally was, holding my great grandmother's hand when she passed away. I was 10 years old, and so like I've known it for a long time, but I still don't like the feeling that it brings. So it scares me. But I'm normally the one that's able to do that, to be the one that's like, okay, here's what we have to do, and then I can, like I said, I go and just deal with it in solitude by myself, which I know isn't always the best way to do it, but
sure. And everyone's different. I think the key word that you use is deal with it. There's a difference of pretending it's not happening and not dealing with it versus whatever someone's process is, and grief looks different for everyone. As long as we are dealing with it, that is the key. For me, I can't remember ever having a time that I was afraid of death, even a loved one or from my own. Part of that is probably the fucked up experiences that I have had. But as I'm saying this, I get two very specific images in my head, and that was from my great grandparents who were ready to go. The things that they said were very, they were looking forward to it, and not because they were suicidal, right? And when I say I don't fear my own death, it doesn't mean I want to die. I don't want to die, right? But I understand I will. And
no, I do too. I just don't want to right now.
It's inevitable. So it's not a thing. It's like a public speech in a class, right? If I know I have to do it, I don't want to, right? But I know it's going to come, so I will do everything I can to make that go the best. When I think of like me passing, the thing that makes me sad isn't me being dead, because when I'm dead, I'm not going to care, right? Hopefully, unless like I'm in hell, then I'll care a whole lot.
Unless we find out something different.
Right. What the thought, while I'm alive, the thought of me being dead is only hurtful in the sense of the impact that it will have on the people who have loved me.
Yes.
And
is everything ready so that things can be taken care of and I won't be a burden after I've left? Like,
And not even
we know we're going to cause hurt when we pass.
Yeah.
Because hopefully there is at least one person that misses you when you pass away.
Sure.
Hopefully. And that's the hope for everybody, I think, you know, that somebody will miss you when you go. And I think those people that don't have anybody in their lives, that's why we are always talking about, you know, go out and make those connections. But there's some people that just
create that
physically and mentally cannot because of certain things that they feel, and it pulls them away from that human connection, which is what humans need. Like,
for me and the loved ones, I hope I'm able to do enough work while I'm here that my passing, though, will innately probably come with some hurt. Grief is never joyful, but I hope that I can do enough work that it gets as close to joyful as possible. Like, I won't have a traditional funeral. I want it to be the premise of celebration of life. I'm going to have my music. I'm not going to have funeral music. I'm going to have pranks. I'm going to when I die and it's all said and done, I want my ashes to it'll be the excuse for a vacation. So it doesn't matter for who, right? Ideally, I hope it is Tracy and my sister Tasha have to take a trip to Ireland, right? And because that's where I want my ashes to be. It's all designed to create a break, to create joy for the people that I leave behind.
I'm burying you. We're gonna put you in, like, when you pass away, and if I'm still alive, I'm putting a whoopee cushion in with you with your ashes.
Nice. I saw this, so I'm stealing it. Not my idea. Is that the guy did a recording while he was alive of him being in the casket, struggling to get out, right? So it sounds fearful, but then he's like cussing and swearing, like, let me out of here, right? I want to do that. Like, that is how I want it to be designed, because the people who know me and who have truly invested in me and have been a part of my life, like, they know, like, that's me. There's going to be fucking shitty dad jokes. There's going to be cheesy humor. There's going to be foul language. There's going to be pizza. There's going to be chicken wings. Like, it's just going to be fun. And there's going to be a room set aside for the people who the hurt is overcoming the joy, that you take yourself in there, you fucking let it rip. If I can afford it, I want to have a place where I want them to have like an axe throwing thing in there, like, so you can just work some shit out, right? You can have the joy and come back and just be loved, have the compassion and support for each other. That's what I want.
Now, one of the things that comes up when we talk about this, it kind of sets it to the side, but when we pass, there's a whole big talk about, like, oh, well, this is how you want to do it that way. I want a Viking funeral where I literally get put on the boat, pushed out to water in the middle of either Lake Tahoe or, you know, out off the coast of Bandon, or, you know, Bandon, Oregon, light it on fire, let me burn up. Awesome. But then we have that thought of, we're dead. We can't control that. So who's going to be there to follow our wishes and do what we ask?
Right.
Because the people that we love and that care about us might not feel that that's appropriate. But it's like, no, that's what I wanted. It doesn't matter what you want. I'm the dead one. I get to have my one last wish.
So I would argue that if the people alive who are in charge of that proceeding know what you want and choose else, right, then they are not somebody I would ever deem a loved one. Right. Because the people who love you will understand where you come from and respect those wishes, as silly as it may feel to them, given that it's legal. What you're describing, I don't know if that is a legal thing that, like, you can do. You definitely have to look into it.
They'll find out when they try.
The feds fly in and you're like, what is it? Because there's something about it's like deformation of a corpse, or I can't remember what it is.
I'll sign a waiver. I don't give a flying blank.
I'll sign a
As
waiver.
long as no necrophilia goes on, we're good.
Yeah. Oh, that's nasty.
Thank you.
My train of thought came back. So I think the reason why I don't fear others dying, when I think logically, and I don't mean that saying that other people are irrational. My brain primarily goes in that direction, and it's objective and typically takes the pain of emotions out often. But I have the images of my great grandparents again being ready to go, it being celebratory, and the sense of relief or
they lived a long life. They did what they wanted, and that, like, I'm hoping that's where I get to.
Yep.
The only reason that I have that
fear-ridden.
Right. The only thing that I'm fearing right now is that I haven't gotten to do a whole bunch of stuff that I wanted to. I haven't done what I've done in my career that I wanted to. I haven't spent enough time with the people that I want to feel like I've done my job in life.
So
now something else could totally come out of left field and say, nope, you're done. And it's my time to go. But
yeah,
like if it's my choice, I'm not ready to yet.
So would you say then that you have the fear of death, or do you have the fear of your life being cut short too soon?
I think that would be more to it, but I also fear, like, I hate losing people that I love because I want to spend more time with them. Like, my grandparents, I got to spend a lot of time with them, which I loved, but I wish I could have gotten more. And I was away at school when they both passed away, and nobody told me until like a week later, because it was during testing times and stuff like that for me. So my family didn't want to put that on me, which I understand, because that was my grandparents' wishes. They were like, no, don't tell him after, so that he can get through his stuff and make sure that he's successful. Those were their wishes. And so I respect them for that. I just wish I would have been able to be there. And that kind of gave me that sour taste where I was like, I don't want to lose any more people and not know about it until after. So that's where I get that. It's not like because I know, like you said, I know people are going to pass away. It's just a matter of time. Each day gets us closer, but I want to be there. I want to be able to say goodbye. I want to be able to have my last conversation with them. And just tell those people how much they meant to me. And I didn't get to do that. Yeah. So that's where it kind of left my, like, the fear that I wouldn't get to say goodbye to the people that I love.
Yeah, I get that. I think for me, I've understood that is going to be a thing. So that, especially over the last few years, and even more so with my sister's health stuff, my mom dying not too long ago, and then COVID, Tracy's dad, is having the understanding of I just live my life with that expectation. So if you and I don't have another conversation after this, right? That's why I'll text you randomly, right?
Yeah.
Is when my brain and my heart hit, like I just communicate, whether it's a text or like reaching out, how things going. Because if that's the last communication, I know that if something happened and you were stuck in a hospital and you couldn't talk, and for whatever reason you thought of my dumbass, right, that the feeling that came with it is compassion, that Jason like truly cared about me as a person, had expressed his like joy and love. And so that's how I try to operate now, is that this contact is the last one in this moment. So because there might not be another moment, at the same time, because I operate that way, keeps my circle relatively small, because I can't have that level of compassion for everyone.
For everybody. Yeah. Well, and you also don't want to have that last comment or something be like, let's just use you and Tracy, for example. You don't want the last time you see each other to have, because you always hear these stories about, I told them that they were stupid and that they did something wrong this morning and now they're gone. You always have to think about that stuff. And you always go, well, crap, how am I going to, like, what's the last thing that I say to everybody? But if you're upset, you want to say that you're upset to people, but you don't know if that's the last thing you're going to be saying. So,
yeah. At the same time, I would never say those things. Because
but you would come out and confront the situation, because that's you, but they might not have the right reaction, and they might say something, or you might say something out of just a really quick reaction.
Yep.
And then you both go your own ways because they're like, I need a break or I need some time to take, I need a minute to think about it, and then you never know. So
I am not perfect by any stretch. That situation I used to be prone to. I'm not anymore because of the way I think and I approach things. I do the work proactively so that there's not reactive consequences because of that. Like, I'm not
me. But there's always other people involved in the situation. It's not just you.
Yep. I would say the hurtful.
You might not be saying the hurtful thing, but somebody else might say something hurtful, and then you never get to clean that up with them, and then you're like, holy crap, now they're gone.
Yep.
Or now you're gone, and that's the last thing they said to you.
Yep. And so in that moment, which I don't wish upon anyone,
right?
And this is going to sound a little selfish, that's their problem. Mm-hmm. So if you said some heinous shit to me and then I passed away and you had that lingering, right?
That's on me.
Yep. And it makes me smile. And I hope that, so if you said the heinous thing, but we didn't have a relationship, it's probably not going to mean anything to you anyway. No. If you said some heinous shit to me and we have a good relationship, after the fact, even though I've passed, and you truly know me, then you would know even the thought of this being the situation gives me joy. So if somebody who has loved me, they would know that I would respond that way, and I would essentially be going out with a one-up on you, right?
Yeah.
And that itself,
I'll get you back when we see each other again.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But I also don't have, and again, I don't expect anyone to be perfect. None of us are. I don't keep people in my life that have that level of drama or reactivity. So Tracy and I, sometimes we butt heads, right? But it never goes to that extent. It never will. I wouldn't allow it, and neither would she. Even through everything going on with her dad and the family and her mom and like my family, like there was like 2 years of just like our own version of hell in a fucked up kind of way. And were we at times temperamental and and sometimes we were more distant. But at no point is being shitty to anyone acceptable. Right. So, and sometimes that means you have to create space, and in those moments of space, like that would be hurtful if something happened, like leaving with tension and not being able to like address or resolve it, which I think would probably be the equivalent of what you're talking about. Hey, like that, and just like that being like the lingering feeling. But again, as I move forward, and sometimes I'm worse than other times, I try to always operate like this interaction is the interaction we have, which is why I try not to be distracted as well. If I go with friends, I don't have my phone. It's always in my pocket. I don't even like put it out on a table. Like I want to be there in the moment and enjoy those things because it's going to be very temporary, right? Maybe a few hours, and then it's whatever comes after that. So
and that could be the last memory you have of somebody.
Yep. So I always try to be present because they deserve that, not just me. Like it is a selfish thing for me as well, but they also deserve that. I mean, when you're trying to spend time with somebody and you can tell that their mind or attention is elsewhere, it feels a little hurtful. So I try not to do those things. And that can be frustrating because sometimes you have to, right? So I could be chatting here and then somebody else needs something, right? And I'm terrible at like multitasking my attention because I've probably trained myself to be present, that it's hard for me to like split it. So even earlier, this morning, you asked me a question and I know my brain registered you asked me something. And I said, sorry, dude, I was reading, right? So I asked you to repeat that. Like that's how, like what I don't even remember what I was reading. So it probably wasn't that important, but like my attention, like it hones in and locks. But the moment you asked, I knew I needed to pay attention to that. So I stopped reading and then asked you to repeat that. But and there's probably times where my brain doesn't kick in and I don't register that somebody asked or said something. But
yeah. So what about yours? Because I don't know if you fully got to it, but or if you shared it online with everybody during the posts. But
yeah, so my fear is actually similar now that we've kind of broken yours down. It's how I leave the world.
we've talked about that a little bit in a couple episodes, like how you leave the world and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So much like you, I want to leave it better, at least for the people who mean things to me, who are significant. I want to hopefully plant a seed where people begin to communicate. It's the premise of JTM community, is where people actually create a community. They come together, they're able to disagree, but move forward and seek resolution and seek peace and betterment. That their unnecessary drama has no purpose. Your internet connection is unstable, so I'm going to pause for a second till it goes away. It did. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I could hear you the whole time. I just couldn't see your face.
Gotcha. So my fear is that I want to be so significant that I'm insignificant. I want to have such an impact that I'm forgotten, that the things that happen become so second nature to people that they just live their lives better and they can't point to me as why it happened. I want it to just be part of how people think, of how, and I'm not saying that I have control of any of that, as much as I want to have an influence out there where people just join a community, reach out to a brother, have a conversation with a stranger, be respectful, be loving, challenge each other, help each other be motivated and grow. But that's just how they do it, and it has nothing to do with me. We've had this conversation about doing podcasts. The podcast doesn't have to be me. I don't want it to be me, not because I don't enjoy it. I love it. I truly enjoy doing it, but it creates a ripple effect, right? So if, again, you had a friend or could be your mom, I don't know that she's popped in here and there, could be like, hey, like, I think this would be a really cool conversation between the two of you, in the sense of the education system and whatever that topic would be, that you could do that and it just ripple, right? Because everyone has different thoughts and experiences and joys and hurts and fears and senses of happiness and belonging or being lonely. Like everyone has their own. So for that to ripple out, that's what I want to happen. That is my fear, is that doesn't, and that the world keeps going in the direction that it is, because it's going there very intentionally. People are, they seek the drama, they seek the hurt, the pain, the judgments. The people love this like polarized aspect that we have, because it makes your in group very, very strong, right? It makes it vulnerable, but it makes it strong in the sense of identity, but it just breeds more hate, and hating someone else will never breed peace. It won't. So even the racial tension, like all of the hot button things, right?
There's a lot of them.
Shit, we just talked about pineapple on pizza, and just like how insignificant that is, but
people get so riled up about
die on that sword. Like, why do you care, man? right?
Yeah.
Like you said that you're not a fan. I said I enjoy it, right? It makes me feel nothing different about you or our relationship, a level of respect, right? It was playful banter of anything. So it's that.
Well, I think it's almost become like, you know, almost sports teams and stuff in terms of that. It's like
Mhm.
it's like your will, like even though you have no possible, you know, worry on the out, like you don't control the outcome of the game.
No.
It's the players. It's this. They're like, oh, my team this and my team that, and we did this and we did that. Are you part of the team? Are you getting paid millions of dollars? No, shut up.
And people fight, like physically fight
Like
over
physically
it.
fight. Yeah. There was a guy that I was at a Niners Seahawks game, and he goes, wow, your team really pulled that one out of there. And I'm like, I enjoy watching the Seahawks play, yeah, but they're not my team. I don't own the team. I'm not part of their. And he's like, oh, that's big talk, because you're just like, we're gonna whoop your asses next time. Shut up. Just walk away because you're drunk and you're 50 years old and that's all you've got in your life. Go away.
It is crazy to me, even in things that are relatively superficial, if the other person or team or whatever does well, because it's so polarized, it's incentivized to excuse how that they got lucky, that your team had an injury, instead of just being like, hey, like you guys pulled that off, awesome, congratulations.
And
right? That's not the mindset.
No, it's not. And if we're talking about it, like you wanted to leave the world in a better place, but not know it was you.
Yep.
I don't know if that's a fear. I think I almost think that your fear is more of where this world is going without good connections and without just proper common sense.
Yeah.
So because the fact that people get angry at pineapple over pizza or their teams and they start just destroying each other over it, and then you see fist fights, and a guy, I think it was a Dodger? No. Niners. It was Niners or something, but he almost got like curb stomped outside the stadium a few years ago, and was in like a coma because of it. And you're like, what in the crap? And now we look at all the political stuff, like they're fighting left and right. How about we just try to be good people and not destroy each other? Because left or right or wrong, up and down, inside, outside, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you keep pushing each other to these extremes, and yeah, we're going to get stuff that's like, holy crap, where's this world going to? Because you guys are pushing each other to the absolute limits where we don't need to go. We can live in a gentle medium.
So people view differing opinions as right or wrong, and sometimes they are, but it's relatively rare. But so similar to yours, you know how you started with the fear of death, but what that actually meant was the fear of not having enough time, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So you're not wrong in what that you're saying. I have the fear of the world continuing to go in this direction and the damages it caused. So that would be the equivalent of you having the fear of death. What I'm more afraid of is that I don't have an impact that it makes it better for someone, because I know there'll always be chaos, there'll always be conflict. It's profitable, right?
War is profitable.
Our world economy specifically incentivizes conflict. Peace diminishes profit, right?
And where did we learn this? Oh my God, history class.
But we maintain that cycle, and now social media is designed to not be truthful, but to create its own narratives. We're starting to see legislation where that can be it can be in law now, or they're pushing for that, which is petrifying to me.
They're pushing things against the other side with you know, pulling self-defense stuff away from you in your own home, and having the right to carry certain things on your person. And it's when it's the people who are being shitheads with that should be hurt, not us, not the people who are law-abiding citizens. But here we go again.
Even legislatively controlling speech is scary, because who decides what is true? Who decides what is misinformation, right? Because
And
right
and wrong
now
morally.
it could be, you could be in agreement of it, but at some point in your life you won't,
Hmm.
right? So now it's like we're just going in a very, very, very dangerous direction, especially when we've created people to be more superficial. So we tend not to like dig into things. So, I mean, my
Yeah.
fear is that that continues, and I've done nothing to help. And that somebody doesn't think a little bit differently. They're not a little more compassionate or have a sense of love. Basically, I want to take my own personal growth and how I view things to try and make it better, that somebody else gets some kind of benefit. That's all.
But I will say, I don't think you have to fear that piece, especially if it's just based on who you touch in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've done counseling, you're
Sure.
doing, this project for yourself, like to create a community of like acceptance and
Mm-hmm.
good discourse,
Mm-hmm.
and you're creating that community. So you've already touched lives.
Maybe.
Because you do the work in the counseling, and that helps people, even if you don't know it now, and even if, like we were talking about in an earlier, gratitude and taking grace and stuff like that. Even if they don't reach out to you and thank you for the work that you've done, you have put effort into somebody's life who did not have effort put into it earlier from somebody else.
Sure.
So you did that. And I think just based on what you do generally and what you're doing now, like teachers, they put their lives into their students. They want them to be better, hopefully, because I know a few teachers that are phoning it in right now. Their job is to, like your job is to do that, and for your personal job. But this community that you're trying to create, you're touching people's lives, and even if it touches one, then that can spread, and that can spread, and that can spread. So I think you're doing what you can. Sure. And until it gets to a greater scale where it's not just one, then it's 10, it's 15, it's 20, it's 150.
Yep.
We wouldn't feel it, but we wouldn't feel it as much.
Mm-hmm.
But you've made that impact, so I don't think that you should be worried about that, because you've made a big impact in mine. My friends, our friends that we have commonly, mm-hmm. I know you've made an impact in their lives.
Yeah, and I'm not discounting that, and I appreciate you saying that. So like the fear side that I have will be one I'll always have. It's mm-hmm. not something that can be resolved because of the design of the fear itself. Right. Which is weird. Like there's a level of hypocrisy that goes into it. Is like any passion, you will always wonder if it was enough, right? And that's like the cornerstone of it. So it's this feeling of like, I know what I want to happen, and it's the question of did I do enough, right? Mm-hmm. Did I put enough effort? Did I reach out enough? Did I do X, Y, Z? And it's always changing. So it's like in the moment, it's tangible. So again, I had mentioned earlier, the moment my brain or my heart gets hit on a person, then I'll reach out to them. I don't put it off. Like in that moment, even if I could be in the middle of a workout and like I'll stop myself and just send a text, right? So the tangible things I can operate well within, relatively well. Mm-hmm. But there's always a sense which is pushed me into counseling and is pushing me to do work with vets and get established a partnership with the VA and to create JTM community, and is to do the work so it goes well beyond me. So it's the idea of and this is the greedy, selfish sense, is I don't just want to touch one person's heart, right? To me, that's awesome, but insignificant. I want to create a ripple effect that now you touch someone's heart, and then they touch someone's heart, and it's just impactful to enough people that it actually makes a difference in their lives. So
Yeah.
I'll use you as an example. So if I'm beneficial to some degree, right? But then you go out in the world and you're still bombarded with shit, and that this one connection wasn't enough to like help you deal with that, then to me was insufficient, right? But now
I'm going to disagree with you, because I think I think it sets the stage.
Mhm.
because you have, it's almost like you're sounding like you're like if you don't do enough, that there's no hope at all. Because but you set the stage, so that means I have to be aware, and I have to also allow other people in my life to touch me like that, so that I can grow from that. And it might not just be, you might have started planting the seed though, but then I have to go out and look at it and go, okay, now I have to do the growth myself, because if I do nothing with what you do, then you can't put that on you.
Yeah,
you can't put that on you, because then it goes into, well, because teachers, the same thing. We only have our students for 180 days a year, 6 to 7 hours a day, and then they have parents, friends, horrible influencers on TikTok and Instagram who do stupid crap, and then they think they can come into schools and do it, and they think it's funny instead of inappropriate and rude. Mm-hmm. They have music. We've all had the music that's, horrible and stuff like that in our lives, but certain people are able to move away from that and not take that. But you plant the seed in people to be able to accept and start moving forward and making the growth, but it's that person who needs to do it. You cannot, it's almost like controlling the things you can and saying, okay, I've done what I can. Now it's their job to go out and actually do the work, because I can't do the work for them.
Yep.
And I think that's where I kind of like see yours as you're putting too much on yourself.
Yeah.
Because you can't make me go out and do the work.
Yep.
You can only give me the tools to and the awareness, and then I can go out and say, okay, now I have to follow through with what my good friend told me or my counselor told me.
Sure.
But there's all these other things that are telling me not to.
So I'm going to go with that metaphor because it's spot on, right? So my fear isn't necessarily the result per seed, right? So I use you as an example, but that would just be one of them.
Right.
My concern is, did I plant enough seed, essentially, we'll use a farming metaphor, to be harvested, right? So because I know most of them, right, won't land. Like I understand that. I don't need them to, but did I plant enough of them that it could be impactful? And that, again, that's where it's kind of convoluted, because the very fear I have is something that I'll also never know, which is why I will always have the fear.
And this is where the conversations between us, I feel like this is a great place for our buddy Mason. Well, even Garrett as well, but with Garrett, you and myself, it's all based on people. Like our job is all based on people. Mason has that military aspect, but he still leads people, but he's got that military aspect where, it's a little bit different realm. You're counseling, I'm teaching. Garrett's ministry and counseling as well. And then I'm looking at it and going, we have a lot of the same aspects in our lives and similar desires, because that's why we get into these professions. And Mason's got those too, but he has that different perspective coming from the military aspect, where he leads people who have to take on some very deep shit.
Oh yeah.
And I say that with very much respect, because they're, I don't know if I could do what they do. And I don't know if he could do what we do. It would just be kind of interesting to see, because I know he wants to leave a legacy as well with his group that he works with, but I'd like to kind of hear that as well.
Yeah. And even with Mason, what I've noticed over the last few years is his mindset, and maybe it's because his kids are growing up. I'm not sure. I never asked him. But a lot of the conversations we've had have shifted and become much more familial in nature. So you can,
I've heard that transition as well.
yeah, you can definitely see that there's like a priority shift, right? Of like what is important, and me as well. I was used to be like very like education oriented, like professionalism, like developing all of that. And the way things have changed, some of the things that I used to hold high stock in actually disgust me now because of the way they operate or treat people in like it breaks my heart to see like agendas in there, especially when those agendas are very hurtful to people. But yet it's preached and pushed. So that had served as a kind of a springboard into thinking bigger, and not just in the sense of like business oriented, but thinking bigger beyond like a specific individual person, and wanting
Whole scope
to,
and the spread.
yeah, to actually make things better, to do so with depth. So I am constantly bombarded, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just in the sense of exposure of people who feel like they don't matter, that they don't have a sense of belonging, right? Whether it's in their own families or friends or in the school they go to or the job that they do. And the commonality between all of them comes back to our culture, right? Is because you could be in a group here and have one differing view, and now you're ousted, or even if you're not ousted, you feel that, right? And it feels like they can't get along, so they can't get along with their family because they voted Trump and their family voted Biden. Like, who gives a shit? Did you each vote for who you felt represented you the best? Cool, job well done. Did you vote out of ignorance? That's a different thing. But if you're voting out of compassion, out of value, out of ethics, right? Just because yours and mine are different, it doesn't mean it's bad, right? But if you're voting out of, it's more so that phrase, well, I didn't vote for anyone, I voted against this person. Well, that's something that you have to evaluate because you voted to hurt, not to help, right? And I understand that. I've done that in the past, right?
And yeah, I think we've come to a point where in both of our conversations we're looking and we're actually seeing a lot more fears that are coming out. Fear of loss of common sense, fear of just the status of human society and human well-being in general, like just being good people to one another. We fear the fact that people are losing that connection and not understanding how to treat people properly. So not just with our own fears, but with fears that we see societal wise as well.
Yeah, as you said that, my fear turned into a tangible movie. My fear is that the movie Idiocracy and everything that would mean is becoming a reality, and I'm not doing enough to have any impact to slow or stop it. Even on a small scale, to the people that I care and love.
I would say Idiocracy, and also almost a combination of Equilibrium and Minority Report.
I was gonna say that, but I really like Equilibrium.
So
the movie I enjoyed.
I love Equilibrium. I love the movie. I love it, but the premise behind it is scary.
Yeah.
All of those utopian societies, like controlled everything and this and that, and nobody can have their own thought process, and but everybody's like so just plain down to like just they're just dull the whole day. And then they go home and do the same thing. That's not life.
Yep, where everything, what they think, even down to what they're allowed to feel, is regulated.
Yes. And if somebody feels something that they're going to do something that's bad, they get arrested for it early, and that's Minority Report. If they're actually thinking about doing it, then they get arrested. It's like, you can't have that kind of stuff.
Yep.
You have to be able to, like you do here, you have to be able to have that discourse. You have to be able to talk it out. You have to be able to understand that there are certain things in society, maybe not anymore, or maybe they're slowly slipping, that you can talk things out that are different. But still be able to be good people to each other.
Oh, sure.
And okay, you don't want to own this one item, but I do. Don't stop me from doing it unless I use it inappropriately.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to take away your freedom of speech
mm-hmm.
from what you say unless it hurts me personally, like unless it goes after my unless it takes away my liberties and rights.
Right. So, and
I won't come after you about it. Like, I don't care as long as it doesn't go after certain things. Like,
and that's the key that we have to remember, though, is it can't be about hurt, right? Mm-hmm. Because if something hurts you, it doesn't innately make it wrong, right?
No.
So, but that's what's happening now is people get to decide what is hurtful, what is misinformation, like all of these things, which in the grand scheme of things is scary. What this really comes down to is wanting to be proactive and not reactive. So going to the movie Minority Report, you can essentially, metaphorically, the premise of you can wait for a crime to happen, right? And then have to react to it, taking a little bit different spin. I would rather do the work so that the person doesn't create the crime in the first place. I'm not saying that they get punished before the crime. I'm saying that it doesn't even happen, right? So you have a homeless man stealing to eat, right? Let's say that's a crime. How about we do the work so he's not homeless in the first place?
Well, how about we give him the tools? Because because we can't be like certain places and just take care of everybody. We can't do that, because then that takes away the human, like then they look for ways to get excitement in life. And that means if you're doing everything for them, then they're doing other stuff that is absolutely probably not okay.
Hold up. Sorry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that you exposed where your heart and your mind is, right? Because of where it took it. So when I say do the work, I'm not saying things to be given, right? I'm saying for a culture to establish a degree of proactivity towards all things, that homeless person, he could still be homeless because he chose to be, right? But that he's motivated for a thing, and that thing doesn't resolve around committing a crime or being in a place where that is his alternative. So that doesn't mean, well, you do the work so he's not homeless, so you give him a home. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying you create a society so the desire that he has is inspired and motivated to put his passions and skills to a use, where being homeless is only there as an option because it's sought and not as a consequence to a thing.
And I think that's what we've created, though. Like, and I understand that's where you were going. I just wanted to put my spin on it because I like kind of pushing your buttons a little bit. But I think that's what we've created already, though, is that you see all of these centers coming up, and it's not just like, okay, homeless centers and communities, great, help them try to get out of that.
Yep.
But with the amount of people that are in those situations and the people that choose not to get out, or we don't have the proper mental health mental health care for them, or they can't afford certain things. It's like, okay, we can't take care of everything, but we can give them the tools, and then they have to try to make the decision. But like the mental health care, that's the biggest piece.
Yep.
Like everybody talks about, well, give them a house and clean them up and do this and do that, and they'll turn it around. No, they won't know what to do with it if they're not in their right mind.
And that's where
or if they have barriers in their brain that are blocking them from doing stuff. And we have to fix the mental problems first. And I'm not saying it's all mental, but I'm saying there's certain blockages in their psyche that either says that they can't get out of that situation, or that they're not worth that situation, like to get out of that situation, or other things like that. And it's sad to see that we're just kind of letting them stay there and not trying to find the right help, but we're going into all these other things that are totally not worth it.
It's because it's not productive in the sense of money. So
and trust me, I'm a capitalist all the way, but I love capitalism. But
most designs are to treat a symptom and not the cause.
Yes.
Right?
And it's the same. It's the same with education. It's the same with mental health. It's the same with all these other things. They just try to throw money at it instead of actually trying to find things that work to fix the underlying causes, because it's a cause and effect. You see the effects. You don't treat the cause, and that's what a whole lot.
Yep.
If you ever need to listen to one thing, learn from the cause and effects lessons in 6th grade, people. I swear to God. It will bring some common sense to you. And this is just me going, this is where I see it. Learn from the teachers when they teach you cause and effect, because if you only treat like you were talking about, if you don't treat the underlying cause, you only are trying to fight the symptoms, and you can't do that, because then you're not actually getting to the root of the problem.
Yep. But a lot of business, I'm not saying this is good, it's bad. It's a bad thing. A lot of business is designed specifically to not treat the cause, because if you treat symptoms of anything, right, it's a renewable income. But if you cured the thing,
you don't have that income anymore.
You lost a client, a patient. So imagine having tires that never went bald and couldn't deflate. Right.
Exactly. There would be no use for the tire industry anymore.
Either tires would cost a fortune.
Yeah.
Because you would have them for life, right? Or so fuel. Let's use fuel as an example. So the way we approach fuel won't change until it has to. It's like all things. Growth comes from discomfort, right? And so.
Well, and I think that's what a lot of people are trying to think about. But
we're so incentivized for fuel to be its thing because it's renewable, right? It constantly. Not fuel itself isn't. I'm saying the income from it, right?
Yes, the income from it.
I'm going to go drive this week. I'm going to empty my tank and have to put $50 in it again. I just saw there's a gentleman over 3 years. More. Well, yeah, it depends on where we live.
Yeah.
So there was a gentleman who had a hybrid motorcycle who had rode it for 3 years and spent $125 on fuel, right? In 3 years. Like, that's just crazy to me. So I'll spend more than that in a month. But we're incentivized, our culture is incentivized to continue to push fuel. There's too much money in it. Right. So there's been other alternatives come up. And oftentimes what happens is the fuel industry will purchase and shelve that thing because it'd be a giant loss of profit. Even like gaming, they introduce ads, they introduce microtransactions, NFTs, like all of these things. If you look at what are all of those things, they're renewable sources of income. Right. So we'll give you this, it's like drug dealing. We'll give you the item for free. We'll give you this game, right? Because we know $60 for you to buy the game ain't shit compared to the hundreds that people are going to spend on those other sources of. So until we disincentivize treating the symptom and incentivize creating the cure metaphorically, things, it won't change.
And so literally it's, we turned around my thoughts of fear of death to the fear of not, fully living a complete life.
Yep,
yours was not, yours wasn't, the leaving of a legacy. It was just like where society is going and that you could touch it to try and change it.
Yeah, that I don't plant enough seeds to make any impact.
To make an impact, to see a noticeable impact in the future, yeah. And then we have the breakdown of society we fear because of where things are going. We have the breakdown of common sense, and just the lack thereof. There's a lot of things to be scared about, but the one thing, if there's anything positive that we can get out of this, is that just like you were talking about earlier, you can start a change. You can start that change and try to make it better. It's just not going to get better if you sit back and do nothing.
Yep.
That's why I teach. That's one of the reasons that I teach, is to drown out ignorance, is to help people learn to think for themselves. And so many people are like, well, teachers are doing this and doing that. And yeah, when you get into college and high school, they're starting to say, well, if you don't believe this, I don't agree with you, and I'm grading your paper down, and that kills people's free thought. And then they're like, oh my God, well, I just have to believe this way or I'm not going to get A's.
Yep.
That's wrong. Yeah. And that's one of the other things that I fear, is that, you know, I'm at a place where I could totally do that to all my kids. I could literally go, here's what I feel, and you have to think the same way. But I don't, because and I tell them in class, think for yourselves. My job is not to tell you what to think, but teach you how to think for yourselves. And you see so many of them that just follow what the thoughts of the influences are. They don't question stuff. And I don't mean question authority in terms of like, you know, talking back to it all the time, but question it and say, why do we do this? And then talking about like, why do we treat other people with such disrespect when, you know, we could be in that same situation? And why not treat people with good, kind hearts, when all of these people that I know are good and kind? But then as soon as you get into high school and college, they're like, nope, here, this is what you need to think. This is, and I'm like, how is that fair?
Yeah, that's where that the agenda stuff that I had mentioned earlier comes in. You really keyed on something, which is the best way that I can think to kind of summarize all of this to a positive conclusion. So whether it's the fear of death, whether it's the fear of not having enough time here and yours and I's are actually very similar, to have the quality of life and the impact on our loved ones and say the things and do the things, or enough time to plant the seeds to essentially have that same impact. These are all fears that we have because we know it can be better. So
absolutely we do.
We can see that it can be better. We want it to be better, whether it's those intimate relationships, whether it's society in general, whether it is our politics or our social media or our education or fucking pineapple on pizza, right? Is we have this, we can see that we can all be so much better, that we can be more loving and compassionate and caring and invest in each other, right? Is that our fears all come down to the thought of, it can be better than it is. Are we doing enough that people can see that people can feel that, whether it's our friends, our family, the fucking stranger, the person that checked you out at, I almost said the video store, I don't know if those exist anymore, at the grocery store, right? There's
got to be a video store somewhere, I think in Alaska.
Is that the fear comes as the flip side of hope. Right?
Well, I
hope it to be so much better, and we're afraid that it won't be.
And it's a fear that it won't be, but I think it's a fear that if we try to do something different and try to change that narrative, that we'll fail. And the fear of failure can stop people from doing things in their tracks right there. And that's the thing that you cannot let yourself do. So, like we've talked about, you control everything that you can. So if you have the chance to talk to somebody and to change their day with a smile or a hug, or if it's a stranger, you know, talking to them and learning their story, or just, you know, giving them a smile or a hello and actually looking them in the eye and showing that there's still human contact that is, you know, outside of cell phones and what we're doing right now. But do that, because you can control that. You can control how things are done if you actually take the time to vote, if you actually take the time to get involved with certain causes. There's ways to change things if you don't like it. and do it for the good. Don't do it for bad. Don't do it because you've heard people yelling and screaming. Do it because it's what you want and what you feel is right.
Sure. Yep.
And I can't fault you for that if you feel it's right, but then I might disagree with you.
Well, and it's okay in that sense to have differing of opinion, right?
Mhm.
It's how you approach the thing when you feel
Yeah.
that you're right or that the other person's wrong. You don't, if we continue to hate and hurt, right, and
Mhm.
excuse hating and hurting, right, things will never get better.
Stop shouting people down just because you don't agree with them.
Yep.
Listen to them and hear their side of the story. And if you don't agree with them, say, well, I'm sorry, I don't agree. I thank you for your opinion. Thank you for your thoughts and taking your time. But this is probably where our relationship ends. And that's fine. You don't have to be friends with everybody or agree with everybody.
You also don't have to end a relationship because you couldn't see eye to eye.
True, but sometimes it is better if they really can't, and we've seen a whole lot of that happen, especially through the last two elections and the last like 3 years of COVID. Is just that people act like you don't actually learn to know people when you get into relationships. You just know them by what they share.
Yep.
Quickly, you don't actually get to know them. You get surface level, and then once you actually get to know them, you go, "Oh wow, I really wasn't true friends with this person, or I don't agree with it." Yep. And if you can't deal with that, then you just have to end it because it's not going to be healthy for you. It's not going to be healthy for them, and you don't want to put yourself in that position.
Yeah, if you can't disagree with,
if you can't resolve it, yeah,
absolutely. Again, I think the moral of this story is, regardless of the struggles and fears, the flip side to those things is an equal measurement of hope. And
there's always hope.
Yes, and don't hope with empty action. Like, if you want things to be better, whether it's the job you're in, the relationships you have, the friendships that you have, right, an education, your ability in a sport or a hobby, right, is to begin to take action, right? Do it healthy, do it with respect, compassion, and care, and you will be surprised at how the world may change and the impact you'll have on others. As you were saying that a moment ago, Will, it's reminded me of something that had happened yesterday, and we'll end on this note. Is we were driving, might not have been yesterday, it might have been Friday. We were driving into town we were volunteering at the Legion, and we had passed a vehicle. Tracy thought it was a person that we knew, so she smiled and waved, but it wasn't that person, right? Worst thing that could happen out of there is you just made someone's day, because somebody expressed an acknowledgement, right? Some sense of joy, and there might have been confusion with that because that other person could have thought, I have no idea who that is, but it still prompts a positive sense. So, I challenge anyone, when you're walking someplace today or tomorrow, or you're driving someplace, is wave to a stranger, smile to a stranger.
Get out of that box and don't fear human contact.
Put some action to the hopes and joys we have, for sure. Again, Will, I can't thank you enough for joining me and willing to have difficult and challenging conversations at times, which is what this whole thing is designed to do. And I'm glad that you haven't canned me as a friend yet, so we're doing pretty good.
I might not agree with you on everything, but I still love you no matter what.
I appreciate that. There's no conditions to that. No. Again, for those who are tuning in, if you enjoy Will and his thoughts and challenges, please don't hesitate to check out previous episodes. Will mentioned a little bit ago the fear of failure, which he and I actually discussed a bit in the past. So it might even have been the actual topic that we discussed. I think
that was the actual topic, for failure.
Yep. So check Will out. He's pretty awesome. Always has some insightful things to say and share. That doesn't mean that he's always right, but insightful nonetheless. Of course, if you want to touch base with me for advancement advising, you can do so at j-tm.community. If you're looking specifically for podcast related stuff, just enter /podcast at the end of that. Join the social medias. Facebook's the easiest thing that you can do for engagement, for input, for voting, for winning, or not that if you join, you win, but if you join,
if you join, you win because you get all this stuff.
Nicely done. I'll take that. Sometimes we do have giveaways based on certain things, engagement in the community and whatnot. So if you're looking for additional resources, you can also find that at the site under the resources and community partners, whether that is local to the Mount Pleasant, Michigan area or national resources at large. Again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Will, for joining me for this episode and for being part of a community where you belong.